Everybody, I'm Claudia Amortegui. I am with the Orion Group and happy to be at, I don't know, number 6 ISS, I think, maybe more than that these days, and presenting on fun-filled stuff of funding, which is never all that exciting, but hopefully this is a whole new topic. Everybody was teasing me saying, oh, you've probably done this presentation many times. I haven't, so we're gonna go with it. So it'll be all nice and new. See, somebody in the back even gets a clap for coming in on time. Possibly. Let's see, real quick on myself. I've been in this industry since 1992. That's not going to last in that pocket. I've been in it since 1992. Where are we going to put this? And started with Medicare, of all things. So for Medicare, I actually went and worked for Quickie as a sales rep for wheelchairs, and that's where I got to learn a bit about product, which was great, and learn that side of it. Then I actually became the director of reimbursement for a national long-term care supplier. So learn provider side, figuring out the collections part. But now since, over 15 years now, I've been consulting. I work with manufacturers, providers, referrals, funding sources, a little bit of everybody, just trying to figure out all this stuff. But in the same breath, be realistic about all of this. Because I know sometimes we go to sessions and it's like, this is what Medicare says, which we have to follow the rules, or any funding source, Medicare, Medicaid. But there's also, I understand the reality of what's happening at clinic, what the sales reps are going through, providers or manufacturers, what you guys are also having to deal with. So how do we make everything work? And the big one that's come up lately has been upgrades. So I heard rumors starting last year that, oh, we can't do upgrades anymore. And I'm like, well, that's not really true. Anyone in here doing upgrades, whether you're a clinician or a provider? That's good. Anybody still think, well, I'm not going to put you on the spot. I was going to say, do you think you can't? You can do some upgrades, I guess is the best way of putting it. So a couple things we're going to cover today are going to be the policy, what's allowed, some specific rehab products. We're only obviously going to talk on the rehab side of it. Having the meeting, having that talk with the patient themselves. Sometimes ATPs having the talk with the referral source and having the talk internally at the office. ABNs, some other issues that may come up. Q&A for a lot of you guys who have seen me present in the past. Ask as we go along. I'll repeat your questions. But one, it allows me to take a break. Two, it gives you guys the ability to not have to worry about waiting to the end to ask your questions. So ask. If we get off topic, we'll steer back and go from there. So just to start, are upgrades allowed? We answered that one. They are, at least through Medicare. We'll talk about Medicaid in a little bit further, but Medicare does have its definitions, so we need to make sure we're specific as to what those are. Then we need to look at upgrades versus non-covered. So we've got non-covered items, which can be something like a seat elevator. In our world, that's the most common one. We'll see it a lot. It's flat out non-covered. It doesn't matter if we've got the most complex patient or a patient with very basic needs. At the end of the day, no matter who it is, you're not going to get a seat elevator covered through Medicare. Something like an upgrade is going to be considered something like what? What could it be? Anything? What was that? High-speed motors could be one. That's actually a great one on power. Some of it could be wheels. Downstairs, we can see some of the Spinergies, the higher-end tires. We could see just different features that are out there. Those can hit some gray areas when we start talking about hand rims, but there's some still great possibilities on it. So there are upgrade abilities, and my biggest thing that drives me crazy is I always have this fear that a lot of times the clients, the end users, have no clue what's available out there. I've always said, if I got injured tomorrow and had not been in this industry for all this time, or even for just a little time, I would have no clue as to what's available. I'd go, all right, there's a wheelchair, just like many people. When I say, hey, I'm in the wheelchair world, they think just wheelchairs that they see in a lot of cases at the airports are just very basic things. They don't know all the stuff. And that's my big, I guess, soapbox, so to speak, to say we've got to let people know what's available and then see how we're going to get it funded. I'm not telling providers to give it away for free, but we need to make sure we at least give them the options. One thing to look at, Medicare, a lot of people still talk to me about down coding. Does Medicare down code a claim? Meaning, if you bill for this level product, will they say, sorry, we're not going to pay for that, so we're going to pay you for this level? They stopped that a couple years ago, but you'd be surprised at how many people still think they do it. They haven't done it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, somewhere in there. So they stopped that flat out. In essence, they put the onus back on you guys saying, you need to make the decision up front. We're going to quit sort of down coding you. So that's why upgrade's really the only word. Down code doesn't exist anymore. The bad part about that is that you do need to know up front, and you need to make sure you're billing for the right thing and make sure you get paid for the right thing, because it's either you get paid or you get denied. So it's all or nothing versus, well, we'll just pay you a little less. So with upgrades, it provides client choice, which is a big one, because we always want to make sure, we all talk about client choice. There's a fine line, there's client choice, and by all means, there's also staying in business. So it's not saying that I want to have the Mercedes of the chairs or Mercedes of the product that's out there, even though you're only going to get paid for the Honda. Back to, now you may be able to say, here's the option. You can be able to pay for the difference between that Honda and that Mercedes, but I don't have to give you that Mercedes. So there is an ability, and that's where that whole conversation or that whole talk comes into play. So it allows the client to pay the difference. The client can be the client themselves, it can be their family members, it can be different community groups, church groups. Got to think outside the box. Not long ago when I was doing a presentation, somebody said, you know, our Harley group in our community, they do a ton of fundraisers. They want to sit there and fundraise money for different people in their community, so they're willing to say, you know what, we're going to do a ride and collect money. So whomever it is or whatever way it is, there's ways that we can, back to, get creative and actually be able to help patients get what they need. Choices just need to be made at the time of eval. That's where clinicians, you guys are key. If you can help make that decision at that point in time, show the differences in the products. This is what insurance pays for. This is other things that are available. To me, therapists will be able to help a lot with that. The referrals will be they'll have a good ability to be able to have that conversation with the patient. Providers, obviously, you guys can too as ATPs. But you want to, to me, best times at eval, but obviously before you actually order the equipment, because you got to know what you're going to get. So it's not a last minute, oh yeah, by the way. You want to know up front, because we're going to need to get some paperwork signed as well. So people keep hearing it's not allowed. I know I've read articles in trade magazines that say you can't do upgrades, you can't upgrade within codes, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can, and there is CMS documentation. Lo and behold, in some documentation, CMS said, well, you can. In other, it says, you can't, but you need to follow the rules for this other publication. And when you go to the other publication, it says you can. So when I talk to the lawyers and anybody else, you can. And recently, which I was thrilled about, I was sit on a council meeting for Medicare. They actually said, somebody asked the question, which made me a little worried, but they came back and said, you can do these upgrades within a code or even outside of a code. You just need to make sure you follow the rules. So it is allowed, it's just being smart about it. So what can you guys upgrade? Their big definition is features and benefits. That's where some of the gray lines come in. My one that I always use, titanium chairs. This was before the K9 code didn't quite go away, but isn't used anymore. Because I'd always say, well, chairs are normally made out of aluminum. Titanium's not the norm for chairs being made, so titanium chairs was an easy one. But that was an upgrade to a different code. Now it's not, it's within the same code. There's ways we can talk about that. There's others. What about wheels? There's a standard wheel versus maybe something like a Spinergy wheel. There are hand rims. Hand rims can get touchy, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more. But there's also tires. You can get your standard pneumatic tire, or maybe you can get a Schwalbe tire or Marathon tire or anything else that, maybe a higher end tire for the clients. So those may have different features and benefits. What we need to look out for is what's included with the base. Referrals, I don't expect you guys to know this list by heart. ATPs, I don't really expect you guys to know this list by heart. But if you somehow can get a copy on your phones, tablets, whatever it is, because there is a list of codes that says this is included with that. Those are the tough ones. because we have to be careful as to, we can't say, well, even though Medicare is going to pay for that, we're going to still charge you extra. So we have to watch out. We'll go through some other examples of what other upgrades we can use. Big one, Medicaid secondary. If somebody has Medicaid, can you charge them money?
Actually,
you can. Yeah, you can. A lot of people, we all think, no, we can't. But we can. There's a but, or there's a definition behind when you can. One of them, if it's a flat-out non-covered item by that Medicaid program, you can. If it's a item that is not non-covered, but you actually put in a PA and they still don't cover it, then you can. You can, parents, uncles, aunts, whomever it may be, may gift products to them. So there are ways to charge Medicaid clients. You just need to make sure you follow the rules. So you do have the ability. I always say double check with your state, but as an overall for all states, if it's flat out non-covered, it's something you're able to do, something possibly like a high-speed motor that you guys were talking about earlier. So that's something you guys can look at. But Medicaid patients can be charged. Normally it's going to be their family members, but it's something you can do. Private funding sources, in a lot of cases, that's much easier. Most of them will take Medicare policy, they start there, and then they expand out their policy and give you guys more stuff. Use the PA process, though, to your advantage on that. Therapists, talk to your ATPs, have them check, find out. You'll typically see some nice consistency, and you'll start learning more and more about specific products, but have them check on that side of it. So privates are an easy one. We then have to make sure we get an ABN. The ABN itself, it's a form hopefully everybody's seen by this time. Couple things, they have a reason on there, and on that reason you have to be extremely specific. You can't just say because Medicare won't pay for it. So it's going to be the chair's made out of titanium, this is an upgrade from the aluminum base. It can be that they want a second set of tires or wheels, which we can talk about again in just a little bit. It can be that they want a high-speed motor package, which isn't going to be considered a medical need. This is going to be a different feature than the standard. So those are examples of what you'd want, but that's how specific you want to be. You don't just want to say, hey, they're not going to pay for it, so I want my money. The client has to be the one who fills out this form. You fill out the top. They actually make the selection, they sign it, they date it, either them or the responsible party, and off they go. But you want to make sure, to me, ATPs or providers, you want that in your hand before you order the chair. Because if you're having to order this all on the chair, you want to make sure they sign it, not you're standing at the door with a whole full-blown chair and them saying, well, I don't know. And I even suggest, if you can, get a 50% deposit up front. Because if they don't have the money quite then, unless they have a really good reason and you understand and know this reason is true, there's a good chance they're not going to have the rest of the money when you go deliver the chair. So what I tend to see a lot of times is people going to the manufacturer saying, well, I have to give this away, so you need to give me a better price. That shouldn't work that way. So it's having that conversation with them as well. When it comes to possibilities of what you guys can do, I call it the second set. This is a great example for wheels, tires, and hand rims. Manual wheelchairs. Manual wheelchairs come standard, so to speak. Medicare considers a solid tire, an aluminum hand rim, and just a standard, well, it depends on the level of chair, but let's say an ultra lightweight wheelchair, a spoke wheel. Those are all things you can't charge for. But if somebody wants the Spinergy, the Schwalbe, and a natural fit hand rim, what do I do? An easy way to not get in trouble, so to speak, and it's all legal and everything's good, is they get a second set of tires and wheels and hand rims. And to me, it's not a bad idea because then they have a backup just in case something does happen. Because I can't charge for that original set, I can actually say, hey, look, we're going to get you those, but we're also going to order you a second set of tires, wheels, and hand rims, all one new sort of fancy set that you guys can have, and they can pop those on their chair. Easy way to go around this is Medicare doesn't pay for a second set, a backup set, or anything like that, so those are taken care of. You can, the tough part of saying, well, I just want to do it on chair, is when we get into the features and benefits side of it. Because how do we define the feature of the hand rim being one better than the other? Well, the hand rim's an easy one. We can't define it because they, unfortunately, on the definition now include all ergonomic and contoured hand rims as part of a standard hand rim. So that ended up killing us with things like natural fit, surge hand rims, anything like that. So there is no way around that one other than the second set. With the tires and the wheels, I know some about the wheelchairs and the parts and the pieces, but I'm certainly not an expert, but that's still going to be a fine line of saying, here's my benefits of those. So again, that's why the second set's a good backup plan for you guys. That's on the manual wheelchairs. Do realize that you guys can bill on ultra lightweight wheelchairs for pneumatic wheels, and most people don't know that, or a lot of people don't realize that. Because for some really silly reason, they said ultra lightweight wheelchairs only have to come with solid tires. I don't see that really very often. In a lot of cases, we'll see the pneumatics, so you can bill for pneumatics and tubes. Therapists, you can do a one-liner as to justifying what that's going to be. And hopefully that should be pretty much a no-brainer as to why you want somebody in a pneumatic versus just a solid tire. And that's all they have to have. So that's what you can do with the second set. And that takes care of a lot of the questions I get with upgrading on wheels and tires, a lot of the questions I get on upgrading upgrading to something like a natural fit hand rim. Just remember with the hand rims, they made that code definition all inclusive. So they really killed us with that, because as soon as they put any type, we sort of get shot in the foot. What about, actually, as I sit there and think, as I see Brett with MK, what about batteries for power wheelchairs? Excuse me? Their batteries are batteries under the code definition, unfortunately, because there could be differences in regards to who gets tested, who has certain standards, who doesn't, blah, 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 and we go on and so forth, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, if they want a second set of batteries, that is one option for them. So always a second set of anything, quite honestly, could be an option for them, but it truly has to be a second set. You can't just say, oh, we're gonna keep those other batteries ourselves. You can't do that. It's gonna be a second set. But that is one way to look at some of these that fall under those gray lines. When you look at some other features, obviously the first one that's still back to, because I've used for years, was always titanium. When that K9 code is still there but not used anymore, now whether it's Light or other companies, or even other companies that are creating different features on K5 level chairs, they're taking those, separating those out as just a K0108, and they can build a client for it, and it's not a problem. What I tell any of those manufacturers is the basic, you have to be able to get that chair without that feature. So for Light's case, you can get that same model in an aluminum frame, or you can get it in a titanium frame. If patient wants titanium, then they can pay for it, somebody else can pay for it, and off they go. There's other new chairs coming out on the market that are going to have different features out there that you've probably seen on the floor, that you're going to see the same thing, that separate line item. They'll bill for it. You can use that as that separate feature. So a couple chairs I've seen there, whether it's elevation features, whether it's other features out there, that's what you'll see, that's what you'll be able to do without a problem. So always think of features and benefits. One that just even is basic, technically they're non-covered, but it was something to also look at, light kits. As I'm walking around the floor, same thing, light kits on the power wheelchairs. You don't have to give them away for free, they get to pay for them. So that's something you guys can do. They were introducing it here, was Roho's Smart Check. That's something that's going to be an option on their Smart Check cushion, on that cushion that they're introducing right now. Same thing, separate line item, that's something separately you can do. It's a feature that cushions don't normally do. So guess what? You guys can sit there and look at it as an upgrade. So there's a lot of ways to step back from that and just say, what can I do? And back to asking the patients, what do they want? So as long as they know, as long as it's their choice and you guys don't say, well, sorry, you get this or nothing, that's not an option. You've got to make sure they can do one or the other. Others you guys can think of or wonder about? Yes? That's the next slide. He had said, what about going from a group 2 to a group 3? That's upgrade. So the first ones were upgrading within the same code, which is something that people have always been scared about, and this one's upgrading to a different code.
The qualification of the Medicare for K-5 includes outdoor use now. And I'm having some client or some therapists ask me for patients they're working with, can they get a power assist or an add-on unit onto an ultralight? And I don't know how to do that because I can't figure out how they would qualify.
So question was, what if we're seeing a lot, obviously to get a K-5 paid for, this is the one time Medicare looks at outside use. So if you don't know that, one tip of the day is if you're billing a K-5, they want to see a list of their indoor and outdoor activities because they actually want end users, thank God, to be active. So are they going to the grocery store? Are they taking care of kids? Are they volunteering? Are they going to church or grocery shopping? Whatever it may be. So therapists, please make sure you guys include that. But you had said, what if we're looking at possibly adding on power assist wheels? Then we get into a tough one. It's twofold. One, for power assist wheels, they have to qualify like a power wheelchair. So it's going back, any power assist falls under the power wheelchair policy. So we have to look at that. So if they don't qualify for a power wheelchair, so to speak, then you're going to have to look at just upgrading them and then paying for their power assist wheels. As basic as that. If they do qualify under the power wheelchair, then they'll actually pay for it. The tough part for them is power assist wheels in a lot of cases are more expensive than some of the group 2 standard power wheelchairs. What I normally find with those are going to be some of the younger people either on campuses who don't have the car that can transport a power wheelchair, but they can transport the manual wheelchair with power assist wheels. So remember, part of all that whole policy is, do they want it? Some people actually pick power assist over power wheelchairs depending on their level of need. So we can look at that side of it. So it just depends on, do they qualify? We might get Medicare to pay for it, or they're going to have to pay for it themselves. Keep in mind with power assist wheels, as much as I hate it, those are capped rental these days. So, and there's no way around that. And you can't sit there and say, well, pay me all up front and you'll bill it as a rental. You guys aren't allowed to do that. So same thing for referrals. Just understand that power assist wheels now, the providers get paid month by month by month, and somebody can sit there and say, I don't want them anymore. And on those, I would look at doing upgrades. So does that help? Anything else on upgrading within a code, though? Same code to same code? So back to your question, though, upgrading to a higher code, you can do, and that's never been a question. The problem I see a ton of providers giving away free upgrades, and I have yet to figure out why. The only one that financially makes sense to me is when you're upgrading from a group 2 power base with power options, but a bariatric size, so a heavier duty size, just because financially in a lot of cases those chairs do end up equaling out. But standard weight or no power options, you guys are just letting money sit on the table. But you can upgrade within a code. The tough part you're going to run into is if you're doing no power option, is you're dealing with a rental to a purchase, which you don't want to do. So what happens with that is if somebody, and it's same thing, if we were to do a K4 to a K5, I would tell anybody financially don't do it, because you're going to have to actually do the purchase, normally purchased item as a rental, and you guys don't want to do that. So upgrading from whether it's a group 2 no power option, you don't want to even upgrade to a group 3 no power option, because that's from a rental to a purchase, and you're going to have to sit there and just take rental payments. So is it allowed? Yes. Is it financially smart? No. A K3 to a K4? Yes. A K4 to a K5? Back to you're allowed, but I wouldn't suggest doing it just on the financial side of it. If you're under competitive bidding, then you're at a loss completely. Yes. Yeah. If you're under a competitive bid, you're completely stuck, which granted, probably I could sit there and say 85% of you guys are in this room are sitting under competitive bidding. So that's going to be the other issue. What I'll see more of is, sometimes more of a group 2 with power options to a group 3 with power options. That's probably the most common one I'll see. And that's what it's going to come down to. He said, you know, I do from the group 2 single power to maybe the group 3 because our pricing with the manufacturer is better. A lot of times that's what I will see. What people have to think about with a lot of the upgrades that you do, or even sometimes I'll see people give away some of the non-covered items like a seat elevator, just remember the repairs are you're still going to have to pay for the repairs. If you're using the same manufacturer, your repair costs may be the same, so it may not be an issue, but it's something to look at. If you're giving away ATPs or providers, if you're giving away a seat elevator saying, you know what, we'll take care of it, and even for referrals to know this, it's going to break at some point. At some point, it's going to need service. It's going to have to be free, and if the client did not pay for it at the beginning, they're not going to be really normally thrilled about paying for any repairs because they're going to keep thinking, well, that's part of it. So anytime we deal with whether it's upgrades or giving away stuff, we just got to look at what's that repair cost going to be. And that part you're going to know, like I said, if it's the same manufacturer, hopefully a lot of the parts are going to be the same cost, but they may not be. So you can do them. I don't see them as often, but you really need to look at the financial side of it. Also realize that as the finances change, possibly, whether the allowables go down, which unfortunately they can't go down anymore, but they probably will. It may become down the road that financially it doesn't make sense, and then that client's used to getting the higher level chair, and you're going to have to say, sorry, I can't do it anymore. So back to having at least a talk with them saying, we can do it now, it may not be something we can do in the future because you don't qualify. More they know up front, the better. We talked about repairs. Like I said, anything we give away, anything we provide, chances are it's going to break. We need to fix it. Somebody's got to pay for it. High-speed motors, I would assume, I don't know, manufacturers you'll know in this room, if those break, I would assume are going to be more expensive to fix than regular motors. So same thing, that's going to be an extra cost, but they need to know about all of that up front. So more information, any end user, family members, anybody knows, the better. I mean, and that's true whether we're talking wheelchairs or we're talking cars or anything else. So any other questions with upgrades to higher codes? What about cushions? I see this one a lot. General use cushion upgrade to a skin protection. I see a lot of it given away. A couple key things. If you're doing it on a power wheelchair, if you go bill a power wheelchair with a general use seat cushion, and that power wheelchair has the ability, has a code, equivalent code with a just captain's seat on it, that's all Medicare is going to pay you for. In their eyes, not mine, they equate the general use cushion to the captain's seat. So they say if they only qualify for a general use cushion, I'm only going to pay you for a captain's seat. What a lot of people don't realize, that includes even it even includes your group 3 no power option chairs. It includes some of your group 2s with power options. And some people keep scratching their head going, why am I not getting paid? And they keep saying Medicare's, you know, they're being jerks, I don't know what's happening, and it's as basic as a simple coding issue. So in those cases, I will see free upgrades. And in essence, what you're doing a free upgrade to is a captain's seat. You'll just provide them the rehab seat with whatever cushion you're going to give them. So that's the different stuff you've got to do on those. And those are the little nuances that everybody's going, why are my claims not getting paid? That's why they're not getting paid. Those are some of the upgrades that make sense that you guys, may end up just doing, and at the end of the day, it's not costing you anything. From the general use to the skin protection or any of the specialty, the only time I normally should see that is if the person doesn't have one of those infamous qualifying diagnoses. and they just happen to be somebody with severe Alzheimer's or severe dementia, and they truly need a higher level cushion, they just don't have that magical ICD-9 code on their claim, then by all means, you're going to look at upgrades on those. So talk to them about that. Therapists, the biggest thing I can tell you is on your stroke clients or even non-stroke clients, strokes don't qualify for the higher level cushions, hemiplegia does. So if they truly do have that, make sure it's documented. But in the same breath, also providers out there, make sure you're getting lists of diagnoses from your doctor's offices. So that's normally their office managers will have that. Having the talk. I, not long ago, had to get a filling. And as I sit in my dentist chair with my mouth open and Novocaine all over, he said, hey, do you want the silver filling or do you want the white filling? Your insurance covers the silver filling, the white filling's X amount extra. I'm like, the white one. It was reasonable, I'm gonna pay for it, no problem, that's what I want. He said, okay. It wasn't, you can tell me later, I'll give it to you for free. It was just, let me know right now because we're gonna do this and we're gonna take care of it. It's the same thing. I have a ton of people that I talk to going, oh, I don't wanna talk to them. Here's the big one, I don't wanna tell my therapist, she's gonna get mad. And I'm like, don't yell at the therapist or the patient, just have the conversation. This is what their insurance covers, this is, other things available to you. This isn't, if you guys have been in this as long as I have been, or even longer, I know for some of you guys, it's not the age of, we used to call the age of the golden commode. It's not the age where we had all these margins we could play with that you guys can say, no problem, here it is. That doesn't exist anymore. So having that conversation, I'll sit there and say, how many people in this room, you don't even have to raise your hands, but think about it, most of the people in this room, in the past year to 2 years, your health insurance has changed. Whether it's been with your company, personally, whatever, something's changed with your health insurance. It's the same thing. Their health insurance has changed. It's Medicare, or if it's Medicaid or private, it's changed. Same conversation. Your insurance no longer covers this. This is going to be considered an upgrade. This is how much it's going to cost you. You'll be responsible for repairs. So having that in-depth conversation with them, like I said, here's the chair. I always will remember it was a Colorado Medicaid patient. He was shown the really bright, shiny green power wheelchair that had everything on it. His insurance didn't cover that level wheelchair. And he gave up I think it was his prescription benefits, so he could then get the shiny green big wheelchair that he didn't quite need that big one and didn't have the financial capability to do it. I'm sitting there going, oh, please don't do that. You need your medications. But those are the things we run into. So by all means, let end users know, here's insurance, these are the different things that are available, and it may be stuff that they add onto their chair after the fact. With a lot of the things, you don't have to get it on the chair, I can add it on later. That second set of wheels, I may not get it today, I might get it down the road. People will ask me with a lot of stuff, such as natural fit hand rims. They're included with the base of the chair. Can I just do it as a replacement a month down the road? Because there's a replacement code for them. Can I just do them as a replacement 30 days later, 60 days later? Don't do it very often. And I'd actually suggest waiting at least 90 days. And literally when I say don't do it very often, depending on the size of your company, but I'm still saying do 1 or 2 here and there, and that's it. Because if not, you're going to create a flag that goes up in the system. And that may be something that you do run into because you have a new end user who you find out 30, 60, 90 days down the road that you really do need a better hand rim for them, that this standard aluminum hand rim is not going to work. That's a different story. And that you're going to get justification from your clinicians. But just to swap them out to play the game, we're our own worst enemies in this industry when it comes to funding. So don't do that. As a referral, clinically, you guys by all means can talk about the benefits of a lot of these options, what it's going to do clinically for an end user, whether it's their shoulders that it's going to save or other parts of their body that it's going to make better or take care of for a longer period of time. You guys can talk about it clinically. You guys can talk about, you have to have this versus this is just going to make your life better. So I always say, whether it's end users, family members, I tend to believe the clinicians a little bit more than the providers or ATPs, not to say that you guys are bad, but you guys are the money people, they're the clinicians, they're the caring one. So it's good to have them have that conversation. As a provider, education, honesty, when I talk about honesty, it's repairs. They don't want to know about extra cost after the fact when they've made a decision. So let them know, here's the cost. Again, we keep saying repairs, but it's a big one. Don't be shy. I have some ATPs out there that have no problem having this conversation. I have others that you guys are still scared to death to talk about money. So you're not, which is good. Don't, like I said, mouth wide open, Novocaine. My dentist is going, do you want to pay or not? Make a decision. I have to make my decision. It's the same thing. So their doctors are not going to sit there and say, oh, you can, I'm not going to charge you for this. It's not going to happen. So we've got to do that. System issues. I do run into some manufacturer reps that say, oh, so-and-so from XYZ company tells me they're not allowed to do upgrades. In most cases, it's a lie. What I tend to find out is in most cases, either the company or that ATP or that location does not know how to do the upgrades in their system itself. And that can be a pain because it's this whole crazy way of billing a claim, but we'll figure it out. So don't just think I can't do it because your system can't do it. You guys can do it. It may end up becoming a paper claim, worst case. But it is something that can happen. So just find out for sure is that you just don't know how, or somebody in your office doesn't know how, but it can be done. We've talked about repairs as a whole, but what about repair parts? Somebody comes in for it's just a repair of whatever it happens to be. Can I upgrade to a different part? You can. This is where it may be 2 years down the road and somebody has aluminum hand rings and now wants to upgrade to a contoured or ergonomic hand rim. They can upgrade at that point in time. You can look at tires at that point in time. You can look at certain different parts and pieces. Look at your code definition. That's the big part. So you do have the ability then. And then on upgrades, I'm trying to think other things out there. You heard me mention earlier batteries. There is a talk, and not even just batteries, I had a conversation downstairs with BodyPoint. Unfortunately, a lot of these products, the definition is what the definition is. We also know in a lot of cases that the products are not by any means equal products. And we're trying to go, how do we make this work? And there may be, hopefully, some conversations of looking at companies that get their products tested to certain standards versus products that don't. I would tell you, as whether it's therapists or ATPs, we need to look and see how long certain things are lasting. But there are possibilities that we can look at with some. With BodyPoint downstairs with positioning belts, unfortunately they tell us a positioning belt's a positioning belt's a positioning belt, which I know is not true. But we're stuck. So we've got to look at how can we legally do this and look at different things that we can do. Like I said, batteries, same situation. There's a couple products that are out there that I'm going, well, I don't know how I can do that. So we have to think through it. Other things with upgrades that you guys are hearing, seeing, not seeing, wanting to know. And then updates as to what's going on right now. A couple key things that I tell you, especially because I heard these questions yesterday as I was moderating another class. Make sure you guys are getting paid the right amount. A lot of people don't realize that there are certain modifiers you guys now have to have, and even newer as of January of this past year, that will tell you if you get paid at a competitive bidding rate or get paid at a complex rehab rate. You want the complex rehab rate if that's what you're getting, if that's what you're providing. So normally in this room is not the billing staff, but if you're not sure, make sure you get in touch with me later and we'll talk about it. But that is something I'm seeing all over the country. Therapists, the biggest thing I can say with you guys, the audits that the providers are getting now are rampant. They're getting letters before they ever get any payment saying, we want all your documentation. As silly as it sounds, not even silly, it's just the way they're looking at it is silly. They want numbers. They like numbers because the medical reviewers, for whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or anybody else, they're not you guys as seating specialists. So they like to see strength test numbers. They like to see range of motion tests. They like to see just tests and numbers. My only thing to you guys is make sure you define what they are. So we talk about it. We've seen some people, oh, they're a 4 out of 5. I'm like, yeah, but it's not a functional 4 out of 5 strength. So define what that strength means to that patient or what it doesn't mean to that patient. They are truly looking for very objective measurements. And if they don't get them, they're kicking them back for the providers. So that is something they are just going on. The other thing I will tell you for anybody that uses templates, which I know a lot of people do, and I get it, make sure your whole eval by the end of it actually matches. So they're weight shifting on one part but not weight shifting on another is not going to work well. Or if we have doctors that are sending us very different information, that's going to get us stuck as well. Those are the big things we're seeing because providers are getting all their audits. Providers, if you haven't seen them, you're going to get audits on manual tilt and space chairs. You're getting them on K4s, just the standard like breezy type chairs. You're getting them on the lightweights. You're getting them on the power. You're getting them on the group 3 power with everything on it. So they are very much looking at the justification for powered seating, power legs, and everything else. So that's out there. So the only thing I'd say with therapists, evals, they like evals better than letters, and evals that they can read. So if you're not typing, just remember somebody else is reading it. Those will be the big things there. Other than that, I'm letting you guys out early, I think. I'm letting you out. Yeah, I'm letting you out very early. Questions?
I think we're going back to the golden commodes. Now it's going to be like a bronze commode with the bundler.
A bronze? I doubt it. There'll be no golden commode or bronze commode ever back. That's gone, long gone. For some of us that I'm barely old enough, I'll say, but for some people that are old enough, that is beyond. It may feel like a bronze commode now, but it's not what it ever was. So no. Other questions? Yes?
Claudia, just to reiterate, the KY modifier,
Yes.
that's the one you were talking about.
Yes. KYs.
Is for,
KY modifiers now, as of January 1, if you are billing a CRT base, manual tilt and space K5s, or our power CRT bases, any accessory that you are billing that was competitively bid, and there's a little nuance to that, but as an overall, you need to add a KY modifier to it. If not, you're going to get paid the competitive bid rate.
in areas that are not competitively bid.
And I mean, literally, it's just that KY is not going to kill you. That KY is going to pay you what you need to be paid. And like I said, a lot of people never noticed that you guys got paid a lot less money from July of 2013 to January of 2015. And if you do go back and look for providers, you are able to send all of those erroneously paid claims, and you just need, actually, it's pretty easy. It's your NPI number on a reopening and tell them reprocess all my CRT claims. And they will actually reprocess, and you might actually see a nice little check. So initially it was just going to be on the power basis, but as of January they changed it and added it to the manual CRT basis. So it's a KY modifier that's out there. Yes? There's a lookup tool. For a long time, as of even up till January, one of the regions was wrong. And I forget if it was A or B that was wrong. So I really want to tell you to use the lookup tool, but I want to say A was the way. Ooh, you are in A. It was A that was wrong? Yeah, A was wrong. So sorry. It's a great concept, and it should be used. And hopefully, I know they had it down to fix it, and I don't know if it's back up yet, but just the others were working, but I believe it was A that was wrong. So sorry. They tried. Yes?
Medicare is no longer covering the center mount elevated leg rest or some of the center mount leg rests for power wheelchair. Do you have any tips for?
So she asked, Medicare is no longer covering the center mount power legs. They are still covering them. The providers don't get paid what they'd like to get paid. That's the difference. So they still cover them. You guys will bill most of them as KO108s. They're just paying the allowable for the standard ELRs, E1010s. They kind of, I will say, manufacturers don't throw things at me. They kind of got smart and realized in some cases it was actually less expensive to manufacture those than the dual.
They changed the description. It used to be each for the power legs, and then they decided it's going to
No, E1010's been payer for a long time.
The 2 years that they switched this back, used to be an each, and they conveniently changed it to a pair.
It would have been many years. He was saying, did they switch an E1010 to each to pair? I mean, we could look on the code history, but it's been a long time. I think some people were billing them. That's why with the power assist wheels, people were billing them as eaches. It's the whole set. And that allowable is not a good allowable. It unfortunately is based off of really old technology, and it's not what we use today, but that's where we're stuck. And that's something, unfortunately, to look at too. Just watch out, because a lot of these allowables were created off of really old technology, and they use really old numbers. But yeah, center mounts are still paid for. The one thing I'd say when it comes to powered seating, if you guys are ordering power tilt and recline, therapist said I'd just ask that you justify why they need both and not one alone. Providers, you may see that world shut down at some point in time in the semi-near future, because back to if you've been in this long enough, everybody used to get just power tilt or just power recline, and when the policy changed 9 years ago, everybody started suddenly getting power tilt and recline. Back to we're our own enemy sometimes in this industry, so when they see the numbers fly up, they start going, what happened? And that's why, just to protect yourselves, I ask, Medicare doesn't, but I always ask therapists to just say, you know, tell or document on your eval why do they need to have both systems and not just one, and that way if anybody ever asks, you've got something there. So take care of yourselves on that one. No, and he was saying, can we use the research as the justification for power tilt and recline? No, normally what I tend to see is the weight shift issue, but then also whether it's a fixed hip angle that they need or, I mean, nothing major. The one thing I will say, and actually therapists, you guys can answer this for me, because from what I've learned in the past couple of years from clinicians is we've talked about weight shifts, whether it's push-ups or whether it's leans. Lately, in a certain part of the country, I've started having people justify that they needed to do a 10-minute push-up, and I'm going, not from what I've seen in the latest stuff, so okay, thank you. Don't use that, because I'm sitting there going, none of us can do a 10-minute push-up. Nobody can really do a 10-minute push-up every, 20 minutes, I think. But I saw this in several places, and it was just interesting documentation, and that's not something to use. But I do say look at weight shifts as both push-ups and leans, because it can be either or. And back to you guys especially, that's the tough part. At this conference, I have all the therapists that normally do really good jobs documenting. I don't have the ones that don't know. But the more we can get out there, the better. Yes?
I was just going to say to that point, there's also a lot of research out there that the shear reduction forces when you combine the two versus one or the other, so you have people that have skin issues.
And that's stuff to add by all means. She was saying there is some studies out there on shear reduction as well by using both. So people with some skin issues. So again, Medicare doesn't say you have to have both. It's sort of like that crystal ball going, something's going to explode in the semi-near future. So just watch out for it. Other questions? Yes, sir. The power foot plate to the floor, which is going to be coded as a miscellaneous code, it's going to be based on I haven't seen them. It's not a complete yes and it's not a complete no. It's based on what the therapists are giving us and the doctors. So I've seen some get paid for, by all means, but it's not something I see too often. Is there a trick to it? I'd look at therapists and say, what's the trick to making sure, why does a patient medically need it? I'd throw it back on that. There's no magical words. I'd have to look at individually why a patient needs it. It was the power foot plate that goes all the way down to the floor. My guess would be transfer issues for some, possibly. They can't swing away power foot. Are you talking about the power center mount leg rest or a power foot plate? Down to the ground, yeah. I've seen some of those paid. It's not that I haven't, but it's really just been based on the therapist eval. So that's that on those. Yes, in the back. So for the expandable electronics and the harness, you're providing those because you don't have a third actuator? Is that what you said?
Providing them, they're getting fired off, but then when we bill it, they're saying the legs are coming, they're not considered an actuator, so
Are you in jurisdiction A?
yes.
Jurisdiction A is having an issue with counting right now. That's not happening in the rest of the counting. Yes. There, for some reason, and that's recently. I mean, not that long ago has that started, from what I understand and what I've seen. Nobody else is having that issue in the country. There's some conversations through all the councils right now because of how they define power options versus actuators. And this is the twisted part, because to count as either no power option, single power option, or multi-power option, the only things that count as power options were tilt, recline, seat elevator, power stander. Obviously, 2 of those aren't covered. Those are just power options. So if I did a chair with a tilt and power legs, it would be considered a single power option chair. That's where I think Region A was getting confused. But then there was actuators, and actuators were defined differently. So leg rests actually did count as the actuator, the tilt, the recline, all of those. In jurisdiction A, they were actually not counting the leg rests as an actuator.
We were getting that on the ADMC.
It was an ADMC.
We had the manufacturers write a letter saying that it is a third, and then they were reversing the ADMC.
Were you getting those denied at ADMC? No. At the level? Yeah, I've seen them on both sides, but it was a jurisdiction A. So just so you guys, for therapists in this who don't know, jurisdiction A is the Northeast primarily. And that's the only part we were seeing that issue. There is a conversation with all the medical directors to make sure that's getting ironed out. So I would definitely appeal it. But an actuator, the leg rests do count as an actuator. What happened is they were getting a little upset because for a long time, the center mounts were only 1 actuator, from my understanding. And then they became 2 actuators. And unfortunately, Medicare felt that some people may have been trying to cheat the system to say, all right, now if I just do 2 actuators, I don't have to get as many products on there. But they're back in there digging, and there have been conversations with the medical directors there, and they are aware of it.
I have about 3 bounce back from EDMC saying that they were covered. I appealed, I sent an addendum,
Yeah.
and I just got an okay to do it. I'm waiting for my other ones to come back.
Our meeting with them on that was October, November, end of October, early November is when that meeting was.
But I'm more concerned about not getting paid after they approve it.
They should, I mean, back to, we'd have to look at them. In this group, it's not the whole conversation I want to have, but we can talk about it. But it is, like I said, I knew exactly where you were at. And they know it's an issue. But it's not happening in the rest of the country, thankfully. So we'll get you guys taken care of there. No, everybody else be happy. Other questions? Then all we have to do, because I have a lovely moderator, she said, I don't have to do anything. I said, you have to give the code. She's got the code for you guys. And other than that, guys, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the trip.